Hi, church. Pastor Jeff here with another Trinity check-in.
Hey, friends. Pastor Amy here from Southgate United Methodist Church.
We are into our new sermon series on Let Us Play, and don't pay any attention at all to the fact that we're wearing the same clothes we wore in last week's check-in video, and that these Legos are in the same place, not where they were on Sunday.
Time warp. Woo.
It's a Doctor Who thing, timey-wimey. What is it?
Bigger on the inside.
Yeah, that's for you, Megan. Okay, so... No, what we did in Sunday in church was we had a video from Deborah Wisniewski, who is a play researcher in Omaha. We talked for half an hour, and gosh, we talked 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, we talked 15, 20 minutes before, and another 45 minutes after we turned the camera off. But we had a full half hour of talking on camera, and she said so many wonderful things that I had to cut out just to make it fit in the sermon time.
I had her just preach.
Oh, sure. There was a whole thing on play and community and the importance of playing with others. And the part that really hurt to cut out was the intersection of play and justice, especially knowing how much our churches care about that. So for today's update video, we both thought we would show you that video in its entirety. It's like 25-30 minutes, but anything else to say, or let's roll it?
Let's roll it.
Can we reference the control room?
Action.
Which is me at my computer later. Roll the clip. You know, one of the things we were thinking about is for the altar, what could we do with the altar that would be fun? And we thought, well, there's obvious things like Duplos, because they look like Legos from further away, right?
Right. I was having all kinds of fun ideas.
Yeah, she made Lego flowers because she likes putting them in
I bought the Lego flower kit and assembled it.
You made them?
Still.
That counts?
That's different from designing them. Yeah. You make it sound like I designed them.
But we were trying to think but grown-up play. How do you get grown-up play on the altar?
Yeah.
We got a few ideas.
Yeah.
But this video setup is play for me, you see.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that's play for everyone else in the church.
Right. Well, that's the nice thing about play, though, is everyone can find their way, and you don't have to be good at it. I think as adults, we think, play, it becomes a hobby, and then or it becomes a side hustle now, right? Like if you can monetize it, then it's valued, but it's hard for adults for us to say, no, I'm just doing this just because it feels good, or just because it brings me joy, or I've done many little crafts and things with friends that I don't consider myself a crafty person, but my friends were into it, so that's how you end up at a quilting museum in Missouri, because on a road trip, because your friends love to quilt. But so that bonded us there, right, in a way. But I do not see quilting in my future.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was fun to play. It was fun to be there and kind of follow. And then sometimes I'll come up with an idea or something and come. A few of us here at the Abbey, we have someone in the congregation who also plays music on the weekends for services, but he plays ukulele, and he teaches ukulele classes.
I was going to say, I saw a bunch of ukuleles on the wall.
Yes, and it's so fun. And those classes are for adults. Yeah. So I think they, actually children have more access sometimes to ukulele class than adults, but it was pretty fun.
So when we talk about defining play.
Could I ask another question first? I'm sorry to interrupt. Who are you?
Oh yeah.
Would you tell us who you are?
Way to start.
Sure. As my son said when he was really little, and I was getting him ready to go to childcare while I was getting ready to go to work. I said, "Come on, we've got to go. Mama has to go to work." He goes, "You're not a worker, you're a player." So
that's awesome.
But actually, my name is Deborah Wisniewski, and I'm the Langen Community Chair in Early Childhood Education at UNO professionally. And my area of interest of research and of teaching is around play, primarily in early childhood education, but I'm actually training teachers and adults who work with young children. So my research and my interests have moved to adult play, because we know for young children, play is those first 5 years, even 0 to 8, is essential for healthy growth for their mind, cognitively, socially, emotionally. So play deprivation at that age is detrimental. It can affect them the rest of their life. So we take it very seriously in early childhood. But what I was noticing is, if we are to create playful spaces for children and experiences, if we're not playful adults, right, it's really hard to create that space for them. So I've come to kind of tap into adult play at the benefit of young children. So,
well, that's fantastic. No, I'm really glad we asked you.
So I back to kind of how would we define what play is?
Right.
And you mentioned kind of monetizing. Some people monetize their play, and how would you define play?
So it's really difficult actually in research, because it's difficult to define it. Play is sort of in the eye of the beholder. But we would call it as any activity, though, that has some qualities to it. One is it's intrinsic. No one can make you play, right? So we could sit here with Legos and it not be play for us.
Put them together.
Right.
That's not play.
Right. Not play. Especially if I'm not interested in it at all. But also another quality of play is active. Not the passive, like I watch, although some people would say for adults in that watching a play in a theater with a crowd still might feel like play. But for the most part, you're engaging in some way, physically, mentally, and with your senses in that part. And then another quality of it is it's the process, not the product, we say in early childhood, meaning you just do it it feels good, for the pleasure of it. If there's a product in the end, great, that was great. But the product isn't always like what it looks like, right? Isn't the goal of it. The goal is being in the moment with that. So those are some of the qualities we look for in play.
So I'm a musician on the side. I do a lot of things on the side. Mm-hmm. And one trap I've seen that I'm hearing in this, one trap that I've fallen into is I need to finish a song. I need to have something to show for this time I've spent doing my music hobby. That's not the play. It's when I get lost in it. That's the play. And when I don't care what comes out, that's play.
That is the play. And there's nothing that intrinsic motivation to have a completed song still can be a part of play. But for adults, I know we sometimes feel like, no, but I need to do it, I think you were alluding to validate my time of spending doing this.
Yes,
I'm telling
that's
you,
exactly
you don't need
how
that.
I feel.
Right. We're definitely in a society that puts a lot of emphasis on work and
productivity.
Yes. And that can be a trap that play can remind us to kind of come out of that narrow-minded way of being. Yeah. And it puts a value, so the productivity and the work culture and like getting it done and it often, I think, ties value to who we are based on what we can do, right? So based on if the song is good or based on what I can do for others. And play actually disrupts that, because you are valued because you're you. And play is a human activity that is just part of being you. So, and there doesn't have to, and that's enough. And you are enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
So play is a developmental necessity for children.
Yes.
And so what age does that stop?
It never.
That's a trick question. Go ahead, though.
Yes.
I'm still waiting.
I know. It doesn't. It doesn't stop. It changes, like, you know, our neural pathways as we're adults are more solidified. So, but play, if you'll notice for other reasons, if in the early years it's to create a foundation for the rest of your life that you can be a healthy and creative and happy human being. Later in life, play often becomes a part of maintaining that health, right?
Oh.
And so there's actually play therapists, psychologists who use play for children. As we get into adulthood, sometimes they call it art therapy. But that play becomes, we still need it. One of a researcher that many of us in the play research field admire and look up to was Brian Sutton Smith, who said, the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The opposite of play is depression.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. That sits.
Yeah.
That resonates.
Yeah. So, I'm getting ready to go to an actual play conference here this next week, and one of my colleagues there is a physician, and there are actually pediatricians and physicians now who, before prescribing medicine or something for you, or even therapy, they'll write a prescription of play. Try play first, then come back.
I just have to ask, what is a play conference like? You all sit in neat rows the whole time?
No.
There's probably a little of that.
There's at this conference there have been no rows. I've seen very little rows, mostly circles and tables.
Just curious.
But yes, it's a wonderful menu of everything from research to workshops to play breaks. So yeah. Yeah, I figure if you're researching play and you're not having fun, then you're probably doing it wrong.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So where do play and community come together? Because play can be solitary,
Absolutely.
but play can also be with others. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Right. So, from a developmental point of view, we can see play, young children start actually being solitary, although maybe playing peekaboo with their caregivers is one way of it becoming social, but they become more, as our cognitive and language development increases, our type of play becomes more sophisticated and it's social, and to where you are collaborating. If you've watched preschoolers play, or say kindergartners to first graders play, they are so into it and is so sophisticated, because it's like there's probably a few leaders, like you're going to be this, I'm going to be that, where lots of planning involved in it. I mean, when you think about it, that's the beginning of community, right? Yeah. How are we going to live together? What are the rules that we're going to live by in the next few minutes, when we're, some Marvel comic,
Who knows?
Who knows? So that's the beginning of it. Historically speaking, anthropologists and ethnographers have looked at cultures and seen play has always been embedded in some way. Thinking of barn raisings, and then you'd have a party afterwards and a dance, right?
Yeah.
In my own church and community culture, yes, there were always dances and bingos and all kinds of that were kind of marked the seasons too. So that brought people together. So what I find interesting in play with the adults is the same with children. If you imagine that dance or that event that was a gala, today people have galas all the time, I notice it's really the planning up to it takes just like the young children, it takes a lot of coordination and working together and collaborating to even get to the event. And I often think, that kind of play demands us to work in community and be in community together.
That kind of play demands us to be in community.
Yeah.
That's a drop quote, sorry.
Yeah.
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 What? Oh, did you have more to say?
Well,
yeah.
I've researched classroom community, and the drop quote sounds nice, I know, and it is, but you have to acknowledge too that in that process of play, in that process of coming together, that there are spaces of bonding and there's spaces of isolation, of exclusion, and that has always been my concern of why I want to look at play and encourage it. Is it doesn't guarantee everyone gets along. It does not a guarantee that in the end, it's a beautiful painting. But it provides a space, though, to really question, though, like, not only how do we play, how do we get along, but how do we function as a community that is inclusive.
Community isn't innately playful. It takes work to be community, to maintain community.
Right.
But done right, perhaps, I hear you saying, it leads to and includes play.
Absolutely, yeah. The play becomes a medium for the bonding and brings joy to it, Another conversation I was having with a friend was we were confused about why we seem afraid to have joy in things that we need to do, like learning in school, or joy in, building something, or, problem solving, community problems, and that. There can still be joy as part of that process. And play is, kind of opens things up for us.
That kind of leads to my next question is, what are some things that can get in the way of play? What can stifle play or be a barrier to playfulness?
My first answer would be adults.
Yeah.
We are the barrier.
Yeah.
But within that, thinking of adults, like thinking why do we put up those barriers, I think are a lot of fears. Fears of letting go of control of others. Play, you don't know what's going to happen next. It is improv. I don't know if he's going to jump or not, or I don't. And as we get older, I think we like knowing what's going to happen next. So we put up barriers or rules or things, what you can and can't do. But play is about what I can't, like the possibility. And we often come in and say, we're already going to shut down some of these possibilities, like don't go there. I often wonder too, some of the barriers to our general societal struggles with playing with people who are different than you are, but what we know is if you get a chance to play with someone you don't know or who's the stranger, you become friends through that play. Yeah. But sometimes there's that barrier of fear of becoming close to someone you don't know or becoming vulnerable. Play is a vulnerable space too, sometimes, right? Emotionally, and putting yourself out there. Like you're playing that song that maybe, or that note that maybe not everybody will like. But that's okay. But
I'm not kidding. I'm into hard industrial techno these days, but I don't volunteer that just easily because not everyone is
exactly not everyone's
that.
Right. So, and play is so much of your identity. To then have it rejected is can just be devastating. So I think that's why I definitely think for when we're talking about play with children is it does challenge our probably larger societal concept of what adults like, that we should control, control your children, get them in line, right? And then not always seeing children as fully human, who have desires and thoughts and just ideas different than we do, and as they often do, are pretty good at pointing out some of our flaws as well. So I think just the unknown creates those barriers. Also, some societal larger issues get in the way. For example, for young children and for the elderly, for anyone, if you want a playful space, some of us don't live in places that are safe to go out of the home, to go play in nature and that. Or you don't have access to nature because of your housing situation or transportation or money. And we also know that some folks' play is, I can look across the way and go, oh, they're playing, and recognize the play and enjoy it. And other more diverse cultures in the U.S. have different ways of playing, but they're not recognized by the powers, and so it's interpreted as not play and violent or scary. If you think about on playgrounds, I see it all the time, little kids playing like world wrestling or something, and they are playing, but an adult may look into that and say they're fighting, they're dangerous, and put negative meanings and not know they were just expressing themselves. Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a demeaning way at all, but you're reminding me of, we have a puppy at home, and Lily, there's definitely a play bite, right?
Yes.
Biting is part of the play, but it's a soft bite. It's not meant to hurt.
Right.
It's just meant to play.
I have a puppy too. They're great at teaching us how to play. Yes. And my puppy does hurt sometimes. But
not
she's
saying she
learning.
Slip up.
Right. But it's also her learning, because I give her ouch. She's learning, she doesn't want to hurt me. So she stops. We do that as humans too, though. It's I don't like that. I'm a little nervous. We're going too high on this slide. Or, that was the thing with children too, is the goal is just to keep the play going. So if it does become someone getting hurt or not liking what happens, the play stops, and generally it's well, let's fix this. Let's figure out how we can keep playing. I don't want to hurt you if that means the play stops. So that kind of need for bonding and keeping that going is stronger than any desire I might want to find out to see if I could hurt you.
Yeah. This might be a repeat of what you've already said, but just in case, I'm going to ask a question that's on my mind. So part of what you do is teach your adult students, let's call them, to how to lead children in play and how to develop play in children.
Yeah.
What do you see them learning through rediscovering play? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, I would say my first thing I teach them is how to not be the barrier, because children know how to play for the most part. They don't. But how can we enhance their play? How can we actually notice what they do learn is noticing a few things. One is, oh my goodness, here they are playing house, and I just noticed all this academic content that we were hoping they were getting. It's right there. They're counting 1 to 1 when they're getting the eggs out of the carton. They are problem solving something. They see the academic content or the concepts we want children to learn. They see it, they're learning it, and they're showing that they know it right there. So that's the first. Usually if people have been working with young children, they know that, but it gets exciting because you see it over and over and over. And so I actually teach them how to collect data then, which is stories and photographs and that, because it's well, how do you know they're learning? It's it's right in front of you. So how do we collect that and then interpret it for other adults to understand? what they might look at that and see chaos and right, or but we might say, no, yesterday they couldn't stack these blocks that high, today they figured it out, right? So kind of being that, I don't know, cultural liaison between right, between the rest of the world and that child world, that where they are learning a lot. I think the other thing that I think teachers who really lay into it is there becomes a rhythm to the classroom, and what we worry about, again, fear of why we stop play, is behaviors that we don't want to see happen, and actually when you are given agency at any age, meaning you get to choose what you do or how you do it, become a little more relaxed, and there's actually less behavior. As children are able, the longer they're given to play and to explore. Those are a few.
You are bridging into my research now, and I'm really resisting the urge. I'm going off on a major tangent. I'll do it real quick.
Go for it.
Play out. All about tangents.
Play in your research.
Well, I discovered, discovered, like I'm some kind of spelunker. Yeah. I discovered a whole field of hope psychology that nobody had brought into the church. We're like the hope people, right? Yeah. And nobody had brought this well-developed hope psychology into the church. Part of what it says is that an experience, our perception, our experience of hope comes from the amount of agency we feel we have, and the amount of pathways, meaning so know how. So if you have the power to do something and you know how, you have hope that it'll happen, right? So hearing a connection between agency, allowing more play, I don't know. There's a connection there between play and hope too.
Absolutely.
Because a child knows how to play. We all do, even if we hold it back a little bit. So the pathway is there. Along with the agency then comes a form of hope.
Yeah. And I should say too, play is also used in corporations for leadership training. I think it gets to that space for creativity, having agency in, the larger culture of work life too. And I can see staying at it. We're in the middle of the great resignation right now. I sometimes wonder, it's like, am I somewhere where I have hope and I have agency and I feel creative, or am I in a place that all of that makes me feel smaller? I wonder. I don't know.
Well, this is pushing out of your area of research here, but you're also a person of faith.
I am.
So where would you say is the intersection between play and faith and spirituality?
So there's many. I mean, if we think of ourselves and our faith of being a community of faith, and if play is one of those tools of the community, it should be right there, right? I've shared before too, I've often thought of the part in the Bible where Jesus says, "Come to me as little children." And I don't know how many people can interpret that how they want. But to me, I often think of play, because to go into play doesn't mean to be childish in the negative connotation we give it. I think Jesus was saying, come open-hearted, come without reservations, come with such hope and freeness and joy, rather than all those barriers like psychological or emotional and like that we kind of layer on us, I see in adulthood. Yeah. So I kind of start my days being playful, of thinking, okay, how can I deal with this thing at work that we're having a problem, whether it's a relationship or just something that needs to be solved. How can I bring it a playfulness, or rather than judgment, right? So that play mindset, that's kind of my connection. Is I often think this is how I was asked to come to him, so, and to the world. So I have to remember that. I also think, just for me personally, when I'm in a playful moment, and even solitary play, and some of my prayer practices are play, and I don't know if it's the spiritual that becomes play or the play that becomes spiritual, but I enter the play actually with this intention of love and like spirituality, of like, this is something special. Sometimes it surprises you too. You're playing something and it's like, oh, I think God's here right now. I think that was a moment, right? I know here at the Abbey, we're asked every weekend to turn to a friend and describe one life-affirming moment from the week. It's like play. It's always been that kind of life-affirming moment.
Yeah.
So, I don't
That's
know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You have anything else?
Is there anything you wish we had asked you, or anything else that we haven't covered that you want us to?
No, I think just thank you for making that connection, I think, between your spiritual practice, your church, your congregation, and play in the church, and bringing that in, because I do think you're opening up a space for, and you have to take a risk, you have to have faith, right? And I know that's difficult, so just a place of gratitude to both of you, but also encouragement to your community, to think about being playful with our neighbors during this time when the world seems full of less play.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us and share your play expertise.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We all
thank you
have
very much.
It is my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Play on.
Oh, we should do the Mr. Rogers, the picture. What is that?
Oh, picture.
Picture. That's it.
Nice.
Do that.
Well, no. Did you know that Michael Keaton was one
Yes!
of the? Yeah, he was one of the assistants at WETA. No, whatever the studio was. So when he put when Fred Rogers put the film reel in the hole in the wall,
He caught it.
A lot of times it was Michael Keaton on the other side.
Future Batman and Beetlejuice.
That's right.
Yep.
All right.
So picture.
Okay.